Greetings all, and welcome to Lucas Brews, and the second Forgotten Friday, where we'll be having a look or building kits from the Korean War. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Idea Models 1/72nd scale F-82 Twin Mustang. So without further ado, let's have a look at this rather strange aircraft and this rather obscure model kit of it. So the Idea Models F-82 Twin Mustang originally came out in 1985, so it's around about 40 years old now. This particular one I picked up secondhand on eBay, and I believe, according to ScaleMates, it's from the late 80s, although they don't seem to have a specific date with this particular box art. It's also been released under the Hobbycraft brand, although I haven't really heard too much of either the Idea or the Hobbycraft kit, so we'll have to see how it is. But anyway, starting off with the box, we have a painted image of a F-82 Mustang flying in what appears to be perhaps either sunset, some rather strange kind of yellowy, pinky, orangey clouds and patterns up in the sky there, with two pilots sitting in the cockpits, and then we've got the titles on the top of the box. On the bottom of the box, we've got a repeat of the box art and the various titles. We've got a little bit of a brief description about the F-82 being basically two P-51 Mustangs glued together. And then on the sides, again, repeats of the box art. On the top of the box here, we have what appears to be a picture of a finished model, and it's done in a Night Fighter all black scheme, which looks pretty cool. And again, we've got the same blurb about the history of the aircraft, and nothing on the underside. So not an awful lot really to this box. Opening it up, we have a couple of bags here containing our various plastic sprues. We have a set of instructions, and then at the bottom here we have our decals. So taking a closer look at the instructions, on the front here we have another picture of a finished model. Again, it looks like the black Mustang in the Night Fighter scheme, and we've got a bit more of a detailed history about the development of the F-82 and its use in the Korean War. The instructions are sort of on a large I think that might be like an A3 kind of sheet, so a bit bigger than an A4, and they sort of fold out and take up a fair amount of space, but you could probably fold it over if you wanted. On the inside we have our assembly, and then on the other side we've got some of the last steps and also the marking guides. So assembly begins interestingly with the wings here, and it appears we've got a single piece for the lower half here, with three separate sections for the top here, with the outer wings with their own upper part, and then the middle wing here with what looks like a optional part here to have the gun bay open and various little 50 cals and the details for inside the wing installed. So yeah, it looks like they tried to do a little bit of interesting detail there, which we'll have to have a look at with the actual plastic, because the instructions aren't super detailed. For the next step, we've got our cockpits. We've also got a verbal or written kind of set of instructions, and it says basically we fix the pilot into place, and it looks like he's also got a separate arm. Then we've also got the joystick, the headrest, the main instrument panel, and this looks like a little bit of sidewall detail possibly. I'm not too sure what that is. It might actually be part of the instrument panel there. I'm not too sure what's going on here. But anyways, moving on to step 3, we then install the cockpit into the fuselage halves there. Interestingly, it doesn't mention to do it twice, I don't think, but I guess it just assumes you'll realize that given that there's two fuselages and two cockpits. But once you've installed the cockpit into the fuselage, you can then join the fuselage halves together, and you've also got the little tail wheel to add as well. Then for step 5, we have our propeller assembly, and it looks like you could probably leave this off for painting, although it does look like, strangely, for the part that sort of connects the propeller spinner to the fuselage, there's a bit of the nose kind of cowling section molded to it. But we've basically got a little pin there to fix the propeller base into place, so pretty standard. And once you've done that, you can then join the fuselages to their respective part on the wings. Then we've got step 7, which says make right body 1A, 2A, referring to left body assembly. Okay, so basically step 7 is saying now do that all again. So a little bit confusing and all over the place, but luckily it's not a super complicated kit. For step 8, once you've built the other fuselage half and you've attached them to the wings, you can then add the horizontal stabilizer, which I think would be probably a little bit tricky to do once they're actually together. It might be easier to install one fuselage and then the stabilizer, but anyways, you can push that one into place. Then we've got a air intake here for, I believe, the oil radiator cooling system. Then for step 10, we've got bombs, looks like a fuel tank, and then the pitot tube and antenna. It refers to the pitot tube as a pinto pipe. I'm not sure if I've ever heard it called that, but maybe that is correct somewhere in the world. Then for step 11, we've got the landing gear. Once again, it sort of just tells you that you have to do, I think, the same to the other side without actually kind of showing, which is a little bit tricky, and I'd imagine quite annoying if this was the first kit you've ever built. But fortunately, it's not mine, and it doesn't look like it's too hard. You've basically just got a landing gear strut, a wheel, a landing light which goes onto the wheel cover, and then another wheel cover here. And then we've got the radome pod, which goes on the middle of the wing there. I think some Twin Mustangs also had a giant machine gun pod, which I think is pretty funny, considering how many 50 cals it's already got. But I don't know if that's an inclusion in this kit. But anyways, you have got a radar pod. And then finishing up assembly, we've got some optional rockets that it also could attach to the middle. So I'd say you've got the option to either do a ground-pounding aircraft or a night fighter. Then for step 14, we've got the windows. So we've got the front windshield, and then you've got to assemble the rear canopy section there. And it looks like you could have it open or closed if you so wish. And finally, we've got the propellers, which come as what looks like a single piece that just gets attached to the front. So that's kind of interesting. I haven't seen too many kits where the propeller is molded to the spinner, at least for one where there's a large spinner there, but well, maybe they're separate parts. It's not super clear given that there's two part numbers, but anyways, we'll have a closer look at that when we look at the sprues once again. And finally, on the back here, we've got our color guides, and they're very, very basic and not very easy to kind of follow. But we've got what looks like two schemes, either an escort fighter, which is silver all over with black propellers, front part of pilot seat, useful information. And then we've got what appears to be a all-black night fighter there, although it looks like the drop tanks might be silver on this one. And then the decals are kind of just shown. I don't think they're actually, unless those letters there are the decals. Yeah, okay, this is a very confusing set of assembly guides. You're probably best to kind of read through that. Or better yet, take a look at reference photos and sort of piece together what the aircraft should look like using them. So not super helpful instructions, and I hope that with the later releases, Hobbycraft did update them and make it a little bit more friendly. But hopefully, with a little bit of research, I'll be able to put together this kit and refer to the instructions when required. So, moving on to the sprues, we'll open up this bag here first, which contains what looks like two sprues in like a silvery colour. So, we've got a set of fuselage halves on each of these sprues, and then a few different parts. So starting off here with sprue A, as you can see, all of the details on the fuselage are raised, which is typical, I guess, of this time period, although a little bit dated by modern standards. Yeah, and we've got some especially prominent and rather large rivets, rather strange looking exhausts there, which seem to have a bit drilled out for them, but then some stuff on the top there, which makes them look a bit odd. We've got a few strange kind of looking intakes there with raised rivets on them rather than holes. Various access hatches on the side here, and this appears to be a imperfection of some kind, where there's a bit of a raised kind of bulge here on the right side fuselage. We've got more raised access hatches all over the place, which are a little bit strange looking. But yeah, so definitely of its time, and it appears we've got the tail wheel door actually molded to the underside of the fuselage there. We've got our radome pod here, once again with lots of raised details. And these appear to be the attachment points for the bombs or the drop tanks for the wings there, which are reasonably basic. And I'm not too sure what this flat part here is. It might be that part that goes in the middle of the wings there. And it's also got some raised details in the form of some little rivets and what looks like some access hatches or maybe tabs to open up the middle panel of the wing there. No fabric detailing on the rudder, which I think would be inaccurate for the F-82, because I'm pretty sure the Mustangs had fabric control surfaces, but I could be mistaken. And yeah, so pretty basic on the outside. On the inside, we've got a few kind of pegs to line up the cockpit part, but no interior sidewall details. So nothing too fancy on this one, and definitely showing its age. Moving on, we'll have a look at the next sprue here, which once again contains pretty much identical looking fuselage halves there. We've also got some pilots here, and one guy's got so much flash on him he looks like he's wearing a dress. The other guy, though, looks a little bit cleaner. We've got our landing gear struts here with a fair bit of flash and some imperfections, but what looks like a nice little bit of detail on things like the brake pads and the struts there. Not too sure what this part is here. It might be some sort of attachment cradle, perhaps for rockets or something. We've got one pilot's arm here. I've just realized the other guy's got a hand molded to him, and he appears to be holding onto a throat mic or maybe adjusting his mask or I don't know, clearing his throat or something. It's a little bit of an interesting pose, but our other guy here has his hand stretched out to grab the joystick. We've got some bombs and rockets here, very basic, and there's a fair bit of flash on the bombs at the top here, but not too bad. At least you've got some armament options. And we've got our horizontal stabilizer hanging very precariously off the edges of the sprue here, with once again raised panel line details and a few rivets. There's also some strange kind of white marks and imperfections in the plastic, but I think that's just part of the color and not actually a surface issue. There does, though, appear to be a hairline kind of fracture or something going on here in the middle. They've done recesses for the control panel, or the control hinges there, and that's the same for the rudder as well. And then on the underside, pretty much the same story. Again, we've got that interesting white kind of thing. It almost looks like silver paint or something, but doesn't appear to be scratching off, so maybe it's some sort of impurity in the plastic. I've also realized we've got a few more small parts here. These appear to be our joysticks, along with the antenna, our pitot tube, and this, I think these are actually the pins for the propeller. If not, they might be perhaps the landing gear lights. I'm not 100% sure there. But anyways, that's those two sprues. We'll have a look at the other bag now. Opening up the second bag of sprues here, we have 2 more sprues done in silver, and then we've also got our clear parts. So taking a look at our wings, as you can see, we've once again got all of those raised panel lines with some very, very large raised rivets as well. A lot of little access hatches are molded, but once again raised recessed lines and then some rivets. Some of the rivets look okay, like a little bit more in scale, but these ones on the outer wing look a little bit big. They kind of give me old Airfix vibes. We've got a access hatch cut out of the middle wing there, and they have actually done recessed holes for all of the machine guns, or the 50 cal sticking out there. So I think we've got 6 in the middle here. And yeah, then on the underside of the single large wing piece here, we've got a lot of raised panel lines and rivets once again. And we've also got a fair bit of raised detailing on the inside of the wheel well. Some of it looks a little bit strange, like I'm not too sure what these large kind of circle things are. They kind of look a bit like imperfections, but given that they're identical on both sides, I'd say they're just attempts at sort of molded piping and various hydraulic lines and brake lines and all sorts of things going on there, so they kind of look cool. I don't really like all of the raised details for all of this, but I guess it's of its time, and though at least the ones on the inside of the wheel well do kind of look cool. There is a fair bit of flashing, especially on the lower wings, sort of on the edges there, that will need to be cleaned up, but nothing that can't be done without a file. Again, we've got recesses for the control hinges, or control kind of joints. So once again, like the fuselage, definitely showing its age, and there are quite a few imperfections, so it's going to take a bit of work, I reckon, to get a good result out of these. Looking at the final sprue here, it appears we have actually got the propellers molded to the prop hubs, which is going to make it very difficult to clean them up, but at least they will be nice and solid parts. There is a fair bit of flashing, and there's a raised line for where the yellow mark would be, which is probably going to want to sand away. But yeah, otherwise they look P-51 Mustang-ish. We've then got the base parts of the canopy there, and they're quite messy as well, with a lot of raised rivet details on them. And they appear to have a little locking mechanism which might actually let them slide open and closed, which is a interesting kind of play feature. We've then got these parts here, which I think are landing gear bay doors. They've got a little sunken kind of part in the middle there, which I think is accurate, which kind of looks okay. We've got our air intakes for the radiator cooling, and there's a fair bit of flash on these as well, but at least the middle part doesn't look too bad. We've got our cockpit floor here, which is pretty basic. The seat's actually molded to the cockpit floor there, and there's some very nasty large ejector pin marks there, which are probably going to want to sand away. The pilot's probably having them sat in the cockpit will cover the ones on the seat there and hide some of the lack of detail, which might be a good option when I'm building this one. We've got our larger landing gear bay doors with nothing really on the outside there, apart from a few kind of imperfections in the molding. And on the inside there appears to be some sort of circle recesses in the middle there, with a larger kind of dent in the middle for where the wheel would be. We've got the base of one of our propeller spinners, and there is a second one which I think just came out of the bag and is somewhere loose, but it appears to be on the floor. I can't quite find it at the moment, so I'll go looking after I finished recording. But yeah, a bit messy, so hopefully these parts will go together all right. We've then got our landing gear, which is pretty basic and rudimentary. There is a bit of detail attempted with the hubs, even on the tail wheels there, but there's a lot of flash and the detailing is quite basic. So it might be worth replacing those wheels with some resin ones, I reckon. Then we've got our main drop tanks here for both sides of the wings, and they're a bit of an interesting shape. Once again, there's some raised details for the pylons that they're attached to, and not really too much detail on the drop tanks themselves there. And finally, in this corner, we've got our 50 cal machine guns, which they've attempted to do a little bit of detailing on, which is kind of cool. They are a little bit, though, imperfect, with a lot of strange kind of shapes and a bit of flashing on the barrels, so it might be worth replacing them. But I might use it as a reference and then 3D print my own sort of section here, because I do think it is kind of cool that they have the large 50 cal machine gun kind of base openable in the wing there. So that's cool. Then we've got our headrests here with a little circular kind of raised bulge for the cushion there. We've got the front part of the propeller attachment points and the cowling kind of molded to them. And finally, we've got our instrument panels here, which don't have any detailing on them, and there's a lot of imperfections. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to, at the very least, 3D print some replacement wheels, possibly try and do my own 3D cockpit and instrument panel as well, seeing as I will probably do a few more Mustangs in the future, and if they're similar to the F-82, I'll be able to just basically do it twice with maybe a few modifications here and there. So I'll do a bit of research and look into doing that. Also probably replace these as well with some 3D printed ones, because I think that would be a cool feature to have, and if it was just a little bit more modern, it would look pretty good. And finally, we've got our clear parts here, which are pretty basic. They've got the general shape, but they don't really have on the front windshields the framework there, which is a bit annoying. And then the canopies themselves, yeah, they sort of look a little bit strange. I'm not actually 100% sure if the F-82 shared the same canopy design as the P-51 Mustang. I have a feeling they might be different, so I'll do a little bit of research and probably replace these with vacuform ones to get a bit more detail. But if I can't, then maybe I'll just go with these. The distortion on them is actually not really too bad, considering how curved they are, if you kind of look through them. Although, unfortunately, there are a few scratches and imperfections, and like I mentioned, no framework on the front windshield there. The last thing to have a look at in this kit are the decals, and unfortunately, the marking guide wasn't super clear on where all of these go, so I think it's going to be a case of a bit of guesswork. I'm hoping that some of them will still be usable, especially these smaller common ones, although I think I might try and replace the main US Air Force roundels, since they look a little bit strange to me. I'm thinking I'm probably going to go with the night scheme as well, since that's where a lot of the F-82s were used during the Korean War, as far as I know, and I think that would be a cool difference from the silver Mustangs. We've got our red markings here for the night fighter scheme, which all look pretty good, along with just the star without the actual roundel. Then for the day fighter aircraft, we've got the black large markings here, and also I think like a squadron emblem or some kind there. Being older decals, the quality on them is not so great, and I might have to test them in water to see if they're actually going to survive. But if they do, that would be great. Otherwise, I might make a scan before I do, and then try and get them custom printed if I have to. But yeah, very basic and of its time like the rest of the kit, but we'll see how we go. So obviously this kit is definitely showing its age, with lots of raised panel lines and strange rivet detailing. Some pretty poor quality on the sprues, which I was a bit surprised with, considering that this is a older kit, so it would have been around when the toolings were a lot newer, so I'm a bit surprised that they're already in quite bad shape. And the decals obviously aren't up to modern standards either, and the instructions are pretty crude. So, as far as I know, though, there aren't too many F-82 Mustangs available in this scale, and since it's such a unique aircraft, I really wanted to have a go, and when one of these came up secondhand for a reasonable price, I thought I would have a look at it. I do believe Monogram or Revell did do a F-82 Twin Mustang, and I would suspect, without even looking at it, that it is a lot better than this one. But hey, we'll deal with what we've got. As I've mentioned already, I'm probably going to do a fair bit of 3D printing and see if I can bring this one up to a little bit more of a higher standard. Probably things like the exhaust, which were a bit strange, I'm going to 3D print as well, and then try and recess all of the raised panel lines. The riveting details I'm probably just going to sand away, and maybe for some areas try and redo them by hand, although personally I find riveting a little bit too much of a challenge for where my skills are at. And yeah, as mentioned, I'll probably go with the Night Fighter scheme because I think that would be a cool difference. Although I do kind of like the look of the silver on the Mustangs. I'll have to still decide. It's probably going to be a while before I actually get around to doing this kit because I've got a few other projects that I'm working on, and it looks like it's going to need a fair bit of work to get it looking reasonable. So I'll probably keep this one aside for a little while, but eventually I look forward to doing it and hopefully getting a nice decent F-82 Mustang with a fair bit of work. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel as it really helps out. And feel free to share your thoughts on this kit in the comments below. A massive shout out to my wonderful patrons for helping me to fund not only buying these kits, but also the products that I use when I make them and the time I spend making these videos. I've already talked a little bit about some of the upgrades I'm planning for this kit, so it may be a little while before I get around to building it, but I am hoping that next week I might have the Revell 1/72 scale F4U4 Corsairs started, so that might be a build video for the next Forgotten Friday. I've also got the Banshee, which we looked at last month, and I'm still trying to figure out whether or not I'm going to 3D print a few parts for the cockpit and maybe the landing gear, and I've also got to sort out some decals for that one, as obviously the kit's ones were not so great. Otherwise though, thanks again for watching, and until the next video, take care, and model on.